Hello and welcome. Today we're holding a town hall discussion on the issues facing West Virginia's water infrastructure. I'm Anthony Kahn.
And I'm Hannah Klein. This is a special edition of ARC Appalachia where we look at stories that are authentic, relevant, and community focused. Well, it's a story that has impacted several parts of our region, fighting for clean water, and much of the blame placed on aging infrastructure. Now, we've been covering water issues involving both public service districts and the state's biggest water provider, West Virginia American Water. From outages to discoloration, water has been a major concern for families all across our state.
And the American Society of Civil Engineers, or ASCE's 2025 report card for America's infrastructure gave the nation a grade of C- for water and D for wastewater. Now, the 2025 report for West Virginia will be released in December, but in 2020, West Virginia received a D in drinking water and in wastewater.
Well, Rodney Holbert, who is a professional engineer and a member of the West Virginia section of the American Society of Civil Engineers, explained the grading system to us. So an A is exceptional. However, he did say actually receiving a grade of an A across the board may indicate too much money is being used in the infrastructure. He also said the goal is usually a B, which is good. It's adequate for now. Well, C means it requires attention. You expect issues to come up and there's a need of maintenance. And a D is really poor, where there is infrastructure that is at risk. And an F is obviously failing. Holbert said he has not seen anything in West Virginia that's an F. His example of an F was when hurricanes hit Puerto Rico and destroyed their utility grid system.
And we wanted to get a better understanding of what led up to the infrastructure issues across the Mountain State.
That's right. Our Latasha Saunders spoke with Holbert, who explains how this wasn't always an issue in West Virginia and what contributed to the problems we have today. Take a look.
What are some of the most common issues that you see here in West Virginia? Of course, it's aging infrastructure. Can you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, I think that's really such a great point, is the aging infrastructure. But one of the things that we discovered that we're somewhat aware of is since the 1950s, West Virginia has had a slow decline in population. So in I guess the census data, we hit our peak over 2 million in the 1950s. So that's when there was a large demand for infrastructure to be constructed to accommodate that larger population. Well, now we've had this decline in population. Well, that's the tax base and user fees that pay for that infrastructure. So what we've seen over that time period is a slow decline in the condition of that infrastructure. And it's been very slow, but it's been real. And with us reporting the infrastructure report card grades, we can quantify that. We can look at where we're at and compare it. And then we can help decision makers, lawmakers, local, state, and federal on where is the need in West Virginia that we may be able to direct more funding to improve that infrastructure element, or maybe even indicate where, when it's combined in with the other states and at a national level, they can look at where do we need to spend more infrastructure. We have direct conversations with our congressional delegation, and they use our report card. Senator Capito, Senator Manchin, and our Congressman McKinley worked very hard, and they referred to our 2020 report card, and they helped craft the National Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act bill. And I think our report card had a significant influence on them pushing for that legislation.
And right now we have Delegate Evan Hansen, who is the Minority Chair for Energy and Public Works and the Minority Co-Chair for Judiciary, Energy and Manufacturing, Environment, Infrastructure and Technology, Homeland Security. I really appreciate you coming on and speaking with us.
Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So I think my biggest question right now is, how would you describe the state's water infrastructure overall?
I would agree with what was just said, that there's a crisis in West Virginia, that we have failing and distressed water and wastewater systems across the state, and that's due in large part to our state's declining population. And what that means is that there's fewer and fewer people paying water bills, so it's harder to maintain them and to keep them up.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. So what efforts have you made in legislature to improve that quality?
Well, the first thing is we have to recognize that we need to bring jobs and people into West Virginia. And that means not just providing clean drinking water and wastewater treatment, but providing high-speed internet, cell service, and highways. We need to make it attractive in these communities for companies to come in and create jobs. Now, we also need some federal or some state investments, and we need to make it a high priority at the state level. And the way you see the priority of the legislature is in the budget. So Minority Leader Hornbuckle and I did propose a budget amendment for an additional $10 million for failing water systems across the state.
Wow.
Unfortunately, that amendment was voted down on a party line vote, but that's the type of thing that we need to do, is include more funding in our state budget for these failing systems.
And you're entirely right. I feel like when there's no funding, it just really causes a ripple effect for everything. And we always hear there's issues with the water, there's issues with the water.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle, because as people move out, it makes it harder to invest. But we need to make it attractive for companies to come into these communities.
I completely agree. Do you think that things are getting better? Does the future look like it possibly will get better?
Well, I always have some optimism, but I think we need to change a policy and we need to change the priorities at the state level.
Absolutely. So you're going to take that step forward to keep on pushing that?
We're going to continue advocating to maintain and improve our water and wastewater systems. There's nothing more important than clean, pure drinking water.
Absolutely. And West Virginia will appreciate that. Well, I appreciate you coming on for a show.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you. Coming up on ARC Appalachia, issues with accessibility to clean water are also being felt in southern West Virginia. We'll talk to two pastors leading the force for advocacy in McDowell County coming up after the break.
Welcome back to our town hall this morning, discussing the ongoing issues facing West Virginia's water infrastructure. You know, people in southern West Virginia have dealt with the challenge of living without access to safe drinking water and wastewater. In McDowell County, the town of Bradshaw and the city of Gary are currently both on the Public Service Commission's watch list for potentially unstable water and wastewater utilities. You can see there a lot of problems to the south as well. And joining me now are Reverend Brad Davis and Reverend Caitlin Ware. Both have been advocates for clean water in their areas. Thank you both for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You all have been really instrumental in trying to lead efforts to help people in your communities. What have you been dealing with? It sounds like an uphill battle for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So I pastor 5 churches in 5 different communities in McDowell County. 3 of those communities are water affected, meaning they either have unusable water or it's unreliable. So yeah, you're talking about roughly 600, 700, 800 households. And that's not the only communities in McDowell that are affected as well. So yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle.
And Reverend Ware, what are you seeing as well?
Yeah, so we've really been trying to focus on getting clean water access across the region as well, and advocating not just for McDowell County, but saying, you know, we got to band together with Mingo, Wyoming, McDowell, Boone, Mercer, the whole Coalfield region.
I was down in Gary back in 2020 whenever there was the week-long water outage, and it was just really heartbreaking to see. But something that really was heartwarming for me was to see everybody come together and help. I was down at Rock Hill Baptist Church in Gary there, and there were just cases of water, and everyone really stepping forward. That just seems like that's really just ingrained in the communities there.
Yeah, you have to take care of each other. I mean, it's a strong, close-knit community where everyone is looked at as a neighbor. And we help each other out as best we can, both with direct service of passing out water to folks and empowering our community to advocate for solutions, because we realize, like you said, that giving out those cases of water is just a Band-Aid. It's not the solution.
When do you think that these problems started? How far back are we going for this?
Generations. Yeah, I mean, these water systems that were built in these communities were, at the time when they were built, were state of the art. But when that were built by the coal companies, and when the coal companies leave, and the communities with a very shrinking tax base and under-resourced to begin with don't have the resources to maintain these water systems. It's a challenge that has been going on for a long, long time.
And a lot of families too use well water.
Yes.
And talk about some of the maybe challenges that come with that as far as mining in the area, just water quality in general.
Caitlin.
Yeah, so, the explosions, the fracking that goes on in the area, so the fracking with the oil and the gas and the explosions that accompany MTR mining, both can damage aquifers. And you also have underground injection where slurry goes into abandoned mines. And so if that leaks out of those mines, that can compromise the water sources. And so, in fact, Gary's municipal water actually goes off of an abandoned mine.
And we're seeing some pictures here on your screen of just some examples of poor water quality like that. Would you say that this is pretty normal, or does it really depend on what community you step into?
Community to community.
Yeah.
But yeah, the communities that we are dealing with, the pictures that you're seeing, that's what's coming out of the tap at any given time when folks turn on their faucets. And in 2025, in the richest nation on earth, that should not be the case. The last thing people should have to worry about is what the color and the quality of their water is when it comes out of their tap.
And then what does this effort look like for you two moving forward? What's your next step? If, I know it might be kind of hard to visualize everything from here on out, but what is your next step in trying to help your communities as well?
So what we've been doing in the short term is saying, we need to get clean water now. And so we have these water trailers. They kind of look like a large barbecue pit, sort of, but they're about 500 gallons. And so we can get those filled for 6 times for $30 a month at a system that we know is pretty reliable and clean. And so we can deliver that trailer out to communities. And so we've been doing those water distributions in the meantime, getting people together in churches and saying, what do you want to do about the problem? Taking people that have been disempowered for a very long time to say, what do you want to do? What is your solution? And then we carry that out and we help resource whatever it is they're wanting to do. And so on a larger scale, it's advocating for federal funding and state funding for water infrastructure projects. And yeah, overall just ensuring that get folks the immediate aid, but see justice in the long term.
And lastly here, you and other pastors have worked to build that coalition. Can you talk more about what has been accomplished with that?
Yeah, I think more so than anything, it's a sense of empowerment for our community. So like Caitlin said, folks, particularly in southern West Virginia, particularly in McDowell County, have felt disempowered, forgotten, and abandoned for so long that I think now with so much publicity like what you guys are doing today, that with so much light that is starting to be shown on the problem, I think people there are beginning to see a little glimmer of hope.
Well, that's really good. You both and everyone there are doing really good work, so we would certainly wish you the best in that. Thank you for joining us all the way up from McDowell County. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We'll be back here after the break and talking about some other counties dealing with water issues like Mingo and Lincoln counties. We'll talk about some of the changes made this year that will hopefully lead to a solution. That's after the break.
And welcome back. Well, this year we've covered issues in Lincoln and Mingo counties with neighbors voicing their concerns and advocating for clean water.
Something has to be resolved around here. People can't live without water.
That was Marietta Hale in January during a Lincoln County Public Service District Board meeting. She was among several customers demanding a solution to water outages and discolored water, while engineers discussed a project to add new water tanks, valves, and piping to areas in the district. Residents suggested selling the district to West Virginia American Water.
The state gives us nothing. They won't even give you a dime of anything. Unless you're American Water, then they will listen to you because they're $1 billion company.
We're doing the best we can, and that's all we can do.
There's been a problem with getting hydrants replaced and maintained in the Elm Creek Fire District for a number of years, specifically the ones on the Lincoln PSD water system. They lack the finances to fix them.
In March, the Lincoln County Commission voted to move forward with the dissolution of the Public Service District. West Virginia American Water would purchase the PSD for $12.9 million, with an added $21 million worth of improvements that would take place over the first 5 years of operation.
Once we take ownership of the system, we will start making immediate investments in upgrading it and fixing lines and replacing leaks or repairing leaks, in addition to upgrading the plant and make sure that it, again, has all the things that it needs to provide good service.
The upgrade increasing cost for customers, with rates rising from $47 to $60, which would happen over the course of 2 years.
And West Virginia American Water President Scott Wyman said the acquisitions of the Lincoln County Public Service District will take time. Still has to be filed with the Public Service Commission, and then approval from the PSC could also take several months.
What are they going to do if we end up having a structure fire and we lose a life because we have no water?
That was Warncliffe Volunteer Fire Chief Joshua Vance back in January. That same month, the Mingo County Commission voted unanimously to reject a proposed water rate increase amid ongoing water issues in the area. Also in January, the Public Service Commission of West Virginia launched an investigation into what was causing problems with the water. In March, many people in Williamson were filling up jugs from a tanker provided by West Virginia American Water after ongoing issues from a leak that Mingo County PSD had underneath Route 119. Now, in April, Chris Varney was hired as the new Mingo County Public Service District Director, and he joins us now here in the studio. Chris, thanks for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Nice to hear me.
So you officially got this position in the spring, coming back into the area and doing this. I'm sure it's been an uphill battle for you. What have you been dealing with since taking over?
Well, like that mainline leak there you mentioned around Dan's Ranch, that happened like the day before I came on full time. So I mean, that was, it was a little kind of a rough start. I mean, right from the get go, I was kind of on the move there, and that took us almost a month to get that fixed. There's a lot of issues. It was whole lot of issues there because it was right under the highway. You were dealing with like permitting from everything and kind of a whole lot of thing there. But regardless, like outside of that, we've had just the normal kind of other stuff going on. A lot of catch up from not really lack of things, but just trying to get everybody back into the swing of it and get everybody's morale kind of back up and what's going on there. So.
Yeah. How do you attack an aging system and try to improve it?
You just kind of got to take it as it is and chop it up into pieces. We're not, part of our system isn't that old. Like the area there that on one team that mainline break happened, that was put in I think the 70s or so. We're kind of like split in a lot of different ways, but we're starting to get a little age in other places and some other stuff going on there, and you just kind of got to take it as it comes and just break it up into more workable, smaller pieces there and go with it.
Yeah, how do you plan to move the county system forward here? What's your blueprint look like here now that you're in this role?
So right now I'm still playing a little bit of catch up. It's just trying to get back, get the maintenance and a lot of our equipment back into operation or into serviceability. But we did have a small kind of rate increase that went into effect that was actually put in a few years ago. It just never was kind of implemented correctly. So that helps a lot there. Funding's always a big problem, and you just got to just break it up and. You get those smaller chunks of things and you kind of work on it until it's correct, until it's fully operational.
I feel like every county and town at some point has to make that decision. Should we be taken over by American Water or by an outside entity? And like, what are the pros for you guys to not have that way?
I'd rather not. Personally. Not that I think American Water is necessarily bad. I've interviewed for them several times over the years. But. It keeps things more local. Those big conglomerate companies, you kind of lose a lot of the personality. Same as I compare it to like kind of consolidating high schools. Every little thing kind of loses its thing there. And they're a bigger company. They have a lot more money, but they still have a lot of the same issues. They're still going to have the aging infrastructure. They're still going to be kind of spread out and spread thin and everything else. And where we're more local, we can respond to stuff a little bit better. As it kind of comes up there, so in my mind at least. So.
What's the community response been for you since taking over?
It's been pretty good. Like I said, it was a rough start, and people were kind of upset, and they kind of came in with a lot of hostility, from the way things kind of were before. But I think things are kind of smoothing over. I've been a little more proactive, trying to talk to people and trying to be more upfront with what's going on. And it seems to be working. I mean, at least judging by the non-complaints that I'm hearing, or not hearing the complaints that I'm going to call that a win. So say it's a little improvement.
Absolutely. And wrapping up here, Chris, what would you like to say to any Mingo County residents watching that are kind of looking to see what's coming next, or maybe they are frustrated with how things currently are?
I mean, my door's open. Just come talk to me. Let me know what's going on. If I don't know what the problems are in the field, then I can't fix them. That's what it is. So.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thanks for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
For sure. Now, coming up next, water customers in Kanawha County sharing their frustrations. The number of projects West Virginia American Water is working this year, and if it's going to be costing customers more. That's after the break.
And now in our town hall discussion on West Virginia's water infrastructure, we now turn our focus to some of the issues in Kanawha County.
Yeah, another county that sees plenty of water outages and discoloration. And to look into this further, Jennifer McAndrews joins us now with a look at some of the problems we've covered so far this year and what the president of West Virginia American Water is doing to try to help improve and prevent those issues in the future. Jennifer?
There are issues that happen more than you think, and some of the people we spoke to say they don't get notifications about outages or when they have to boil their water. It's a problem for them. Earlier this year, we spoke to people in Dunbar when they were experiencing an outage, and they say that happened several times before.
We don't get any notice in Dunbar. What is the plan here?
We just get these temporary fixes, and we want a permanent fix for our residents.
That was Dunbar Councilmember Amy Fogg and resident Janet Zerby back in March. And people who live there told us they've been experiencing water issues on and off since 2023. They said they've had at least 6 water outages since February. The area is also covered by West Virginia American Water, and the company said outages in March were caused by a water main that feeds into the city of Dunbar being damaged during road work, and that valve was identified and replaced.
We've replaced 2 hot water tanks in probably 10 years. This is our 3rd one because of the water leaks, the dirt in it, and tearing it up.
This video taken in April as the water company continued working on its $700,000 investment into infrastructure improvements in Bell. People there told us they've gotten used to unreliable water with outages and discoloration. The project includes replacing more than 1,000 feet of water lines in the west central area, with 4 new hydrants also being installed. Now, we spoke with the West Virginia American Water President Scott Wyman, who says he doesn't think there have been any significant issues in Dunbar. He thinks they're in good shape. He also says that portion of upgrades in Bell is expected to be finished at the end of the month or in early August. During our discussion with him, he also spoke about the work they've done across the state this year. So far in 2025, crews have completed 48 infrastructure projects, which amount to about 66,000 feet of water main line replacement. They're working on 14 projects right now.
We invest right now, we're planning to invest about $120 million. So it's a little less than that, but that's generally the number. In infrastructure improvement in 2025, right, in total. Now that includes things like things that break, that needs repaired, things that where we have to change meters, some of the normal regulatory work that we have to do. But the biggest chunk of that goes towards infrastructure improvements, replacing X number of feet of main water lines, fixing and replacing hydrants that need it based on inspections that we do annually, updating things like tanks, right? Every now and then you got to either do a big project on a tank or in some cases we're replacing a few tanks, all good capital investment. Is it going to cost customers more? Well, yes and no, right? First of all, we do have a rate case that we filed. I'm sure you know that. But that's based on $300 million of investment since our last rate case. And so the whole intent here is to continue to make sure the system is in a position and a condition to deliver that clean, reliable water. Our system is not perfect either. It's in a little different shape, but given where we're at, our focus is on trying to make sure that system can deliver clean, reliable, safe water to our customers. We want to do that. We want to do it at the right the most affordable way we can. That's not always a fun topic for people, but it does take investment to get the system to do what it needs to do, especially in the state of West Virginia, where as you know, there's a couple hills around that we have to get it around or over, right? And that complicates things.
Now, that rate increase Wyman referred to is the 27.9% increase on its customers. The company filed with the PSC last month. Now, West Virginia American Water asking the PSC to phase in the rate increase. If approved, the average customer's bill would increase $11 a month in phase 1 of that increase and another $5 in phase 2, making the total hike for customers $16 more a month if this entire request is approved. Now, West Virginia American Water does offer customer assistance programs. You can find out some information on that. Here's the website. It's up on your screen right now. That is wvamwater.com. Once you're there, just click on Customer Assistance Programs. You may be eligible to up to 20% off your bill and other programs. Water quality in West Virginia is an ongoing issue, too. We'll be talking with state lawmakers from Kanawha County about how they're trying to make a change. It's coming up.
Well, in Huntington, this is video from May on an infrastructure upgrade project. The $390,000 project included replacing 600 2-inch PVC and 6-inch PVC main on Dolton Avenue from 19th Street to 20th Street, with a goal of reducing service disruption and improving water quality. West Virginia American Water President Scott Wyman spoke to us about what he thinks is needed for the future to improve the state's aging water infrastructure.
It's a big issue. It's a very important issue, right, for the customers, for the residents across the state of West Virginia, who every one of them deserve good, clean water, right? Safe water, reliable water. And that's the number one goal we have. And so I think it's really a combination effort to work with the local municipalities, the local county governments, and even the state government to think about a broader approach to try to how do we get these systems fixed. You know, where do you start? Even like, do you start with the worst, or do you start in the middle? You know, there's a number of things we could kick around, but I know this. We have a lot of smart people in the state of West Virginia, a lot of very hardworking people in the state of West Virginia. And if we get all our minds together, we can make this work. I guarantee you that.
Well, Wyman also said the American Society of Civil Engineers 2025 report card for the nation's infrastructure, with water receiving a C- and wastewater receiving a D, is scary, and there is more need of a team's effort along local municipalities, local government, and state government to make those improvements. So now we have Delegate Sean Hornbuckle here to talk about what state lawmakers are doing in an effort to improve the state's infrastructure and those who do not have access to clean water. I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. So I first want to start and talk a little bit about if you were able to propose a state lawmaker, yes, to make water more accessible to people, what would you do?
Oh, well, there's lots of things that we've done, but first, it comes down to us working together and looking at a multi-layered approach. A lot of people don't think about this, but a lot of us know that West Virginia's infrastructure is aging, all right? A lot of it's out of date. And so the biggest thing that we can do as far as policy is we need to be really focused on our population, because if we don't have that population, we're not going to have the tax base that's in place to be able to sustain any efforts that we have. So I think the first thing that we need to do is we really need to be looking at our policy that is driving population here and keeping population here. So I think that is the first step. Yes, ma'am.
I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of people too look at the outside states. You know, we're
Yes.
looking at places like Kentucky, we're looking
Correct.
at places like Indiana, but we always forget about West Virginia.
Absolutely. I mean, West Virginia currently, since last summer up until this point, we have lost the most jobs around all of our surrounding states. Wow. And so we have to make sure that we are reversing that trend. And again, it's truly an all hands on deck approach. What we've doing hasn't worked. I always tell people no party has a monopoly on all the good ideas. Yeah. And right now we're not working in a collaborative manner. And so I'm really asking and challenging my counterparts to get out of this political sphere, right? Yeah. Make sure that everybody is at the table because we have a lot of different policies that can aim at keeping population here and bringing more people in to uphold our infrastructure. That's
a good point. Were there any bills passed during the legislative session that kind of dealt with that water quality?
So the water quality, we had a couple ones that Delegate Evan Hansen was working on. Those did not get across the finish line, but we're going to keep on chipping away at that, and hopefully, like I said, we can work in a bipartisan manner to get those things done. And it's so frustrating too, because you see people's, and you go out in the community and you see people's lives, you know? Yes, they turn on that water faucet or anything and it's brown, it's dirty. I think it is asinine, unconscionable that in 2025, we have people in West Virginia that don't have clean drinking water. I mean, you look down there in Mingo, McDowell, some parts of Lincoln, Logan, Wyoming, they literally have brown and yellow water. I mean, just recently when they had the floods in February, not only did they have a flooding issue, they couldn't even clean their clothes. Yep. They couldn't even do a good cleanup effort because their water was dirty. And so I just think it's a travesty. We've got to do better. And a lot of that, again, it also stems with the flooding issues that we've had. You know, my heart goes out to everybody across the state, southern West Virginia, north central, up in Triadelphia and Wheeling. Just yesterday in Huntington, my town, there was another flood that's just hurting people. And so we've got to get out of our own way as a state and make sure that we're working together to get this thing done. And the good thing about it is we do have some money that's there, I do believe, to start putting into play, because it also takes preventative measures. A lot of times we're stuck playing defense when we can do things on the front end to help with our infrastructure. Absolutely. Great point there. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming in and talking about this. Thank you. All right. We'll be right back after.
I can't brush my teeth. Okay, I'm right. Everybody knows I'm right.
Coming up, people in Milton have been dealing with water quality issues for over a decade. If State Delegate Bill right here in the studio
to talk about funding for new projects to try to fix those problems. And welcome back. Well, now we want to take a look at water infrastructure issues in Kanawha County, as people who live in Milton have also been dealing with unreliable water for several years.
And now with some new leadership, a possible long-term fix is in the works.
But I can drink the tap water. I can't brush my teeth. Okay, I'm right. Everybody knows I'm right.
You may remember this. Last September at Milton's water board meeting, Randall Jarvis escorted out of the building after expressing anger and frustration living with dirty water.
You can see the stuff in the bottom, but this is what actually came out of the faucet.
The water problems plaguing the area for more than a decade, being blamed on unauthorized fire hydrant usage and old faulty pipes.
I mean, first and foremost, you've got some folks that have seen some yellow-colored water, and that's not acceptable, obviously. And so you've got members of the community that are turning on their taps and are not happy, and that's understandable.
In 2023, Milton Council voting to reject a West Virginia American Water takeover. Last November, new hope as new leadership took over the town.
That's why me and most of the council, the new council, that's why most of them ran, is just to help, because they're tired of it too. And most of the reason is because of the water.
Shane Evans, also fed up with water issues, deciding to run for mayor and won. Now months into his administration, work has begun for possible long-term improvements. Earlier this month, Milton officials announcing the launch of major infrastructure updates.
We have got phase one, the water project's going to go out for bid hopefully early fall. It's in engineers' hands, and it's a new storage tank out on Kilgore Creek, and it's going to be updates to the plant here, and there'll be new water lines put in over off of James River Turnpike and up through Connor Addition, which goes out East Mud River.
City officials say this is not a fix that will happen overnight, but they are very happy with the progress they've made, and they say they won't stop until everyone in Milton has clean water.
And right now we have Delegate Daniel Linville, who represents Cabell County, who you just saw there in that story. He also chairs the House Committee on Technology and Infrastructure. And also, you've been working to get toward a solution for Milton there. We talked to you earlier in the year about whenever all this happened. What's been going on since then?
Sure. So Milton's been awarded about another $6 million or so in additional grant dollars from our Water Development Authority. And that's one portion of our more than $600 million effort all across the state over the last probably 2 to 3 years. That effort has resulted now in over $2 billion worth of projects all across the state of West Virginia.
And as with anything, this does take time.
For sure.
What would you tell residents that are waiting to see changes made as far as maybe how soon they could start to, like the words of the gentleman there, be able to brush his teeth?
That's right. Well, dollars are going out the door right now, and the engineers are working on it. I was actually at the City Council meeting and the Water Board meeting just last night, and we got updates on where everything is. They're doing filtration upgrades. They're doing line replacement. They're working on both water and sewer projects right now. We've got new water tanks coming in, and so the investment is there. The city's working also to bring down any of their water losses. And so operationally, your dollars that you're paying for your water are beginning to go even further because they're losing less water in the lines.
Now talk about the process in the legislature about trying to get some of these ideas passed. So obviously, whenever a bill's introduced, there's a lot of layers to it. We've seen some efforts fail in the past that include a little bit of that water infrastructure. What is important to you as far as proposing legislature like that, and where do you see this going from here as far as things you might propose in the future?
Sure. So there are two key pieces. One is funding and one is policy. So the policy side of things, we're trying to make sure that we've got the support networks available for our small rural water utilities, right? A lot of times they're 3 and 4 and 5 people deep total and as their overall staff. So we've proposed legislation that's going to additionally help them. In fact, the Rural Water Authority is putting forward a lot of additional support for them and bringing in the expertise from all around the state to make sure that our water plants are beginning to operate significantly more efficiently. The second piece is obviously ongoing funding. So over the last few years, we've put forward about $600 million into water and wastewater projects, but that's sort of been one-time dollars. There's about 40 or 50 million every year that we ordinarily put out for that, and then we've done some significant additional dollars of appropriation. But what we did this year was add in that 5% of the tax dollars that come in from all these high-impact data centers and microgrids, that was one of the governor's big bills this time, goes straight into the Economic Enhancement Grant Fund at the Water Development Authority. So as we bring in data centers, water quality continues to improve.
Well, so what would you tell residents about just if they're dealing with it in the meantime? What advice would you give them right now?
Well, show up, work hard, push to make sure that your city councils, that your water operators are doing what they need to do. That is the clear first thing, right? It matters to hear your voices, right? And then the second is that we are working to bring everything up to speed. We didn't get here overnight, right? The reality is some of these lines have been in the ground for 70 and 80 years, and they were only supposed to be here for 50 or so. And so there's been a lot of issues over the decades. We're working to clean that up, and we're working to make sure that when you turn on the tap that you've got clean, safe, reliable drinking water.
All right. Well, Delegate Linville, we appreciate you being in here today.
You bet. Think so.
Absolutely. Still to come here today, we're digging into water issues and the costs behind them. We're speaking with Wendy Braswell with the Public Service Commission of West Virginia about the investigations that they conduct and how the agency determines whether or not you should pay more on your utility bills.
And welcome back. Well, ensuring fair and prompt regulation of public utilities, that's the mission statement for the Public Service Commission of West Virginia.
Yeah, the West Virginia PSC lists 115 active public water districts in the state. Right now, 22 water and wastewater utilities are listed on the PSC's watch list and have been determined to be potentially unstable. That list includes water districts in Kanawha, Fayette, Lincoln, Logan, Mingo, and McDowell counties. Active cases under investigation include the Linmont Sanitation System, LLC in Barbersville, the Armstrong Public Service District, and Kanawha Falls Public Service District in Fayette County, as well as the town of Cedar Grove in Kanawha County.
And right now we're here with Wendy Braswell, the head of the PSC Legal Division, joining us now. I really appreciate you sitting down and really breaking this down for us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I think my first question is, what is the process to launch an investigation of a water and waste utility?
A filing should be made before the Public Service Commission, and it can be made by anyone. It could be made by a customer of the system, by a supplier of the system, by a funding agency, and sometimes the Commission staff makes these filings because of problems we've been made aware of with the systems.
That makes sense. So if a district is found to be unstable or even distressed, what are the proper steps for that?
Do you mean the proper steps that the Commission might consider to fix the system? The Commission has a variety of options at its disposal after it goes through the long process, or I'll say the thorough process, to determine that the utility is unstable. It could require a corrective action plan, things the utility can do itself. If the utility is doing well enough to fix itself, steps it can take to fix itself. It can also require the utility to enter into an operations and management plan with a capable proximate utility, so the capable proximate utility can operate it and provide good service and help the utility to become financially stable. Or it could, in the end, if there's no other solution, it could require an acquisition, but has a variety of steps that it can take, the typical regulatory steps to fix the utility. And it really depends on what works best.
Absolutely. And I think, too, our biggest question is what are we able to tell these families or people that might be dealing with some of these issues?
I think the things that we can tell them is to let us know when there's a problem and let their local public service district board or the local municipality or association board know when there's a problem. They can make filings at the Commission. They can make formal filings, even an informal complaint where they ask for assistance. Those are typically resolved fairly well when there's not a severe problem such as a distressed utility. But just to be active, to let people know when there's a problem, and to encourage solutions, I guess, is the best way to think about it. Sometimes distressed utilities are small. They have a small customer base. They don't have a lot of resources. And the best solution is for maybe utilities that don't have resources and are struggling to be reaching out with their area neighbors to seek maybe a merger or a consolidation to pool resources.
And I think some people might go, you know what, my issue is not as big as so-and-so's issue that's in another city, another town. Does it matter, you know, the size or anything?
The size of the utility or the size of the problem?
The size of the problem, yeah.
I guess for folks who have a problem affecting them, it's a big problem. Yeah. So maybe they wouldn't want to request a distressed utility filing. Maybe they would just want to file a complaint and ask for help for their individual problem. But I think it matters to everyone if they have a water outage or a sewer backup in their home or their surroundings. You know, not everyone, there's no requirement for perfect service, but for folks who are suffering from those types of problems, you know, they should feel that it's their right to reach out and request good service.
Absolutely. Overall, what does the future look like if we do have these people taking the necessary steps?
Hopefully, the Distressed Utilities Bill, by its own language, is designed to improve service and provide safe, adequate, reliable service in the state. That's the Commission's goal that it states in its orders when it's examining these situations, and hopefully that's the outcome.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and speaking with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll be right back after the break.
And that will do it here for this town hall right here on ARC Appalachia. And if you miss any of this and you want to see it in its entirety, we'll have this posted over on our Eyewitness News YouTube channel.
Some important information for families all across our state.
Yeah.
Well, the news will continue on Eyewitness News at noon. From our family to yours, make it a great day.